Hi there, and welcome back to Utility Sports. Today we will be doing a 2020 NBA mock draft, and I'm joined by Sheldon here, and we will go pick by pick, provide a little bit of analysis, might provide some hot takes in there. Um, you know, a little bit different from what you might see in typical mock drafts, but we will see how that goes. So, Sheldon, the very first pick in the draft belongs to the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yep, and we'll be going along with what we think will happen realistically. And here with the Timberwolves, we've heard a lot of rumors, considering Obi Toppin out of Dayton, considering LaMelo Ball from the Illawarra Hawks. Obviously, big name, would sell a lot of tickets there. And obviously, Anthony Edwards is still in play. I think that they're going to end up ultimately going with LaMelo Ball. I think that will be their selection here. So let's draft him there. I think, people will get caught up in the will he work with D'Angelo Russell? And I think those are kind of fair critiques, but usually when you have the first pick in the draft, you should be less concerned about how it fits with your current roster and really who has the upside and who could potentially change your franchise. And I think that a lot of NBA experts and insiders believe that that is going to be LaMelo Ball in this class.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think LaMelo Ball definitely changes, what the Wolves are trying to do here. They're trying to bring fans to the stands. Obviously, they have a lot of issues selling tickets the way it is. They do have a very young, exciting core with that pick, having D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns. You add LaMelo Ball into the mix. I don't know if that's exactly the right pick for them, perhaps not, but I think it makes the most sense in terms of just trying to develop a basketball brand, and nothing is bigger right now than the ball brand in terms of a family brand. So LaMelo Ball makes a ton of sense from an outside of basketball reasons perspective, and I think that's definitely where they're going to go.
Right. So moving on here into the Golden State Warriors at pick 2, obviously there's I think they're probably the team that's most willing to move out of the top 5 slot here. Obviously, they're going to be competing for a championship this year and would like to get a veteran player who's really going to help them do that. But with this class, I don't think there's going to be a lot of suitors, so we're going to have them stick in here at 2, obviously. And, they've been obviously a lot of rumors about who they like and who they don't like coming out. A lot of, words on, guys having great workouts for them. And partially that has to do with who we think's, they're trying to trade that pick. So I think they're trying to, increase its value seemingly. But I think ultimately they're going to end up going with center James Wiseman based off of need. And I think that's also the pick I would do if we were making this pick ourselves. I think I would take James Wiseman because you're going to have to match up with Anthony Davis. You're going to have to match up with Nikola Jokic. And having James Wiseman gives you potential in the future to do some of those things. So I think James Wiseman will be the pick here.
Absolutely. That's definitely who I think they'd go if they do stay here. You did bring up the point if they would move the pick. And I think that is pretty likely. And they were trying to boost because they mentioned in every single workout that they've had so far with the players they've brought in that they were phenomenal, just trying to boost that value because teams value the Golden State Warriors' opinions, obviously, because they do know how to draft, they do know how to develop. So I think that's exactly what they were trying to do. The next team is the Charlotte Hornets. Obviously, they do not have any star players. They've made a lot of really bad decisions so far in their franchise and current roster construction. You have Batum making $25 million a year. You have Rozier making a ton of money. And Graham was a nice bright spot for them last year, but they really just don't have the star power. They don't have, the depth even. Really, really bleak outlook for them, but they have an opportunity to draft potentially the best player in the class with this pick.
Yep, Edwards is still here. Many do see him as the best player in this class, and you might think this isn't really that bad of a result for Charlotte, but I feel like Charlotte will prefer the 2 guys that went before them over Edwards if they were given the opportunity to, simply because LaMelo will sell tickets, and in Charlotte that is going to be a big deal for Michael Jordan and ownership and executives there. And I think also that, James Wiseman fits better with what they have on their roster. And I think that they like Devontae Graham and Terry Rozier enough that they want to build through that with GM Mitch Kupchak. But I think with how this board's fallen so far, I think Anthony Edwards is the clear selection here for them. I think he's got a lot of upside. I think he could be a really good player in this league. So that's who they'll go, and they'll probably play him at the 3 often with next to Rozier and Graham.
Yep, exactly. I think that's where they would potentially go. The next pick is the Chicago Bulls, who a lot of people deem are pretty deep and have a lot of nice young players. However, they do not look like they're going to be competing really at this point. So Sheldon, who would you have going to Chicago?
Yeah, Chicago is one of the really question mark spots in the draft. A lot of people feel pretty confident that the top three will be LaMelo, Weissman, and Edwards. For the reasons we laid out about star power and potential, and also size and length and that kind of stuff. And then 4 kind of becomes the question mark. There's a pretty big grouping of players here from about 4 to 14. A lot of people believe, and I even think it gets a little bit deeper than that, 4 to about 18 or 19. So I kind of want to open this one up to you here, and I want to know who you kind of see the Chicago Bulls going with based off what their roster is and what you think Billy Donovan might be looking to do with this roster.
Yeah, this is definitely a tough spot. This could be one of the biggest question marks in terms of who they would go here. They do like taking point guards. They like guards, especially historically. In terms of who I think they should take, I think they should take Adia just because right now I think he's the best player still available. However, I think they would opt to go with Killian Hayes with this selection.
Yeah, I'd also felt like Killian Hayes will be the selection here. I think that given Billy Donovan's, notoriety as being a guy who gets a lot out of his players, whether or not we agree with that or not, I think that they'll take a boom or bust kind of selection here with Killian Hayes. They have a pretty solid foundation to their roster, and they want to take a guy who they think maybe could become a superstar. And Killian Hayes has some of that potential. He showed some ability to get himself open. Really struggled as a shooter, but if the shooting comes around, he's got some of the makings as a 6'5" guard to really make some of that stuff happen. So I think Killian Hayes will be the pick here if they don't trade down in the real draft. Obviously, this would be a prime spot for them to look to move down. Moving on to 5 here with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Obviously, they got 2 guards in Garland and Sexton. Garland being their first round pick last year. Love is obviously still on the books, and Tristan Thompson's a free agent this offseason with Andre Drummond being acquired this past deadline. What do you see here for the Cavs?
Yeah, the Cavs are definitely an interesting spot as well. I think once again you'd look at Denny Adia. I think they would even consider Obi Toppin here. I really don't think they would consider a guard really at this point. They do desperately need a wing. So I'm actually going to go Denny Adia with this selection.
Yeah, I love that selection there for them. I think that if Dia is going to really transition into, a league guy for a team, I think he's got, the traits necessary to be an elite scoring option down the road. And I also think he's got the, the passing vision and the court vision to really become a transcendent passer as well at the wing position. And I think that he could be, the face of their franchise in a couple years.
I think something that's important to note from that last selection is people are comparing him to Luka in terms of play style. Yes, in terms of ceiling, no, he is not going to reach Luka's level. However, it is in terms of play style, he does play quite a bit like Luka, has that European flair, and definitely looks a lot like him. Obviously, it shares a lot of the same qualities that Luka shared, or he shared with Luka coming out of the draft. So I think that's a phenomenal selection, and actually on both of our big boards, he is number 1.
Yeah, I think we both, kind of see that the floor that a lot of experts talk about with him being pretty high, but we also think that his ceiling based off some of his traits as a passer and as a scorer, an individual creator are very high. And in a, pretty solid class in terms of depth, I think he's, top on our board for the reason of his potential rise to stardom. Moving on to the Atlanta Hawks here. Obviously, going into the draft lottery, they probably would have loved to fall into the top 3 and get a shot at the Georgia product, Anthony Edwards. With him off the board here, what do you kind of see for Atlanta based off their fit? Do you think they're drafting off a fit, or are they going to go best player available?
I think when you're at this 6th selection, I think a lot of the times you want to just go best available if somebody has fallen to you. You look at their team, and obviously they kind of have some glaring weaknesses, especially at the shooting guard position. I mean, Herter's a nice bench player. I think Okoro fits really nice here. And one I haven't really thought about that much to Atlanta would be Obi Toppin. He is still here. He's one of the better players on our boards individually. I think the fit makes a lot of sense, having some nice defense with Okoro. He gives you some backdoor cuts. Doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands to be effective on offense. and he's a very very good wing defender. And I think that's what Atlanta definitely needs. They need some more defending in general. Obviously, they have a lot of offense, a lot of fireworks with who they have, but I think Isaac Okoro should be the pick here.
Yeah, I agree. Okoro is one of those guys who's going to not only, be able to take the matchup against the best player on the other team out on the perimeter, but he's going to want that matchup, and he's going to work his tail off to beat that matchup. Night in, night out, he's got, he's already shown really like vast signs of improvement, not being a top 30 guy in his recruiting class, and now we're talking about him with the 6th pick overall here in this draft, and I think Okoro's going to continue improving. Offensively, he's got a lot of room to grow as a shooter and as a creator and as a ball handler. But like you mentioned, he's got really good slashing potential, really physical player, great athleticism, and defensively, he's going to be the top defensive player in this class out on the perimeter. And I think he's a phenomenal fit here with the Atlanta Hawks. Moving on to 7 here with Detroit. They've got a lot of question marks moving forward. Obviously, you got Blake Griffin on the roster. Christian Wood supposedly wants out via his Instagram Live this past week. Sekou Doumbouya is a guy who's taken some time to develop. Luke Kennard, there's question marks around if he's the shooting guard of the future or not for them. And Derrick Rose has obviously been in every trade rumor since he basically signed there. What do you see for the Detroit Pistons, Austin?
The Detroit Pistons are one of the harder teams also to kind of pinpoint what they would do in this scenario. They love big men. I think that's been very clear with how they've constructed their roster, considering Wood and Griffin and adding a guy like Henson, Maker, and they're a really, really tough team. I think they will take Obi Toppin, just considering that they feel like he might be the best player on the board right now. I mean, also there is Halliburton. I don't know how comfortable they feel with their guard play. Obviously, I would probably opt for them to go Halliburton, but I think they will go Toppin.
Yeah, I think so as well. A lot of people see Toppin as a guy who can come in and contribute right away, be a really good offensive weapon, and I think that Obi Toppin will likely go here at this point. Even though, like you had mentioned, I think Halliburton would be a better fit based on what they have roster, and I think Halliburton will also be a very good player in the NBA. But I think Obi Toppin will be the selection here. Moving on to 8, obviously the New York Knicks have been rumored to be looking at guards. Obviously, a lot of rumors around LaMelo Ball, but he went number 1 in this, and without real ability to trade up, they don't really have a ton of assets that I think the Wolves would really truly consider here in this draft after having the top spot. It makes the Knicks kind of stuck at 8, and they're a tough team to mock. Obviously, you want to think guard, but they shouldn't be really limiting their options based on what their roster looks like right now. They should be considering everything and going best player available. What do you see here for the Knicks?
Yeah, but on that same notion, they are looking best player available. I think Tyrese Halliburton makes a lot of sense if they were looking guard. Also, Cole Anthony is there. It has been rumored that they do not like Cole Anthony. However, that could be a smokescreen. We can't always buy into that. We don't know the source that said that they didn't like Cole Anthony. I feel like this is a very Cole Anthony spot for them, looking for a flashy guard. I think they will go Tyrese Halliburton if they have a good scouting department at all, which clearly they don't. So I think it would make sense for them to go Halliburton. And I think they should go Halliburton. I think they will go Halliburton. So I'm going to have them select Cole Anthony here with this pick.
That's perfect, honestly, because, Halliburton, I think pretty much everyone who, really followed college basketball this year would say that Halliburton is the stronger prospect. He's got a way better frame, a way better wingspan, was way more consistent than Cole Anthony, and is coming out after a huge improvement his sophomore season over Cole Anthony's very shaky freshman season at North Carolina. And, even here for the Knicks, obviously they got Mitchell Robinson, but, guys like Onyeka Okongwu shouldn't be ruled off the board just because they have Robinson. I think that they should be doing what the Sixers did a little bit a few years ago when they took Noel and Embiid in back-to-back classes. But like you had said, it's the New York Knicks, and I think that they're going to really try and sell a product, and I think Cole Anthony will be the option here. And the only reason I think that they maybe would pass on a point guard at 8 is if they feel like they're going to acquire Chris Paul at age 36 this offseason. So might not be the best move for them still moving forward to go do that, but it's the New York Knicks. So we'll have Cole Anthony going here at 8. Now the Wizards at 9. This is probably the dream aspect for them with Onyeka Okongwu here on the board. Let's go find him. He's a center out of USC, and he actually played with LaMelo Ball at Chino Hills in high school. He's really good athleticism, good frame, and I think that he kind of fills in the middle what they need, and Thomas Bryant can move back to being a rotational big, which kind of fits his, fit more his mold better. Let's try and find Onyeka.
There he is. He was right there. Right. So
there he is. Yep. Okay. He's a power forward on here. He'll be a center in the NBA though. What's your thoughts on Onyeka here in the fit with Washington?
Yeah, I think they're jumping out of their chairs. They're so happy that they were able to land him at this spot. Obviously, the Knicks should have maybe looked this way. However, knowing the New York Knicks and them making decisions, they aren't going to ever make the right one. So that's why Cole Anthony went the prior pick. I think this is a good fit for him, good fit for Washington. He's definitely going to help them compete next year, and he fits in very, very well with Wall and Beal.
Yep, definitely. Moving on here to 10, I think the Suns, a lot of people have been kind of thinking that they'll be going point guard this year, Kelly Oubre. Some see as the small forward of the future. Some are less sold on it, and they took Cam Reynolds last year to kind of fill that 3-4 combo spot off the bench. Obviously, Devin Booker probably won't be going anywhere after that 8-0 bubble performance. And DeAndre Ayton kind of got that starting center position locked up. So point guard seems to be the obvious answer here. And I think that they'd be very happy to have Tyrese Halliburton here on the board. I kind of had seen them going potentially Kyra Lewis at this point due to his dynamic nature as a scorer and ability to go north-south and complement Devin Booker as an additional scorer. But I think Tyrese Halliburton as a shooter and playmaker kind of fits better here once he's on the board at 10.
Yep, that's the exact same thought I had. Definitely need to take him. Nice combo guard. We can do a lot of different things for you. He's longer than Kyra Lewis, bigger than Kyra Lewis, and I mean he can fill in the one or the two while he's playing there. Because obviously on the bench they do not have very good guard play behind Rubio and Booker.
Yeah, definitely, and that's the other thing too. Looking at them is this lets you this allows them to let Booker kind of work with the ball in his hands more with Halliburton's ability to function off ball as a shooter despite his unorthodox form. And here at the top 10, we've got LaMelo Ball going 1, James Wiseman 2 to the Warriors, Anthony Edwards, Killian Hayes, Denny Avdia, Isaac Okoro, Obi Toppin, Cole Anthony, Onyeka Okongwu, and Tyrese Halliburton. Now moving to the San Antonio Spurs here at 11. Obviously, a tough spot to really mock what they're going to be doing here. They haven't picked in the lottery for 20 years or so. So this will be, first time for a lot of young fans to see them in the lottery. What do you have the Spurs kind of looking at here?
I think Aaron Nesmith is the guy that is not currently listed, I don't think, on that first page. I definitely think he makes a lot of sense for the Spurs here. I also think Patrick Williams might be a fit here. I think they would go with the guard, perhaps, in Aaron Nesmith from Vandy. So I think that makes a lot of sense for them, trying to boost up the guard play again. The future with DeRozan's uncertain. And obviously, DeJounte Murray has an injury history, so I think that should be the pick.
I'm having issues finding Nesmith here. We're gonna put Kareem Maine here, but we're gonna say that it's Aaron Nesmith because I cannot find him on the list. Do you see him at all?
I do not. I do not think they have. It's kind of a disgrace that they do not have him on this.
We're just gonna mock Kareem Maine here, but it will be representative of Aaron Nesmith. And I do like your selection there with Nesmith. He gives him a shooting option. He's got a good frame as a wing. He can be able to play the 2 through 4, likely a few years into his career, and gives them kind of versatility to fit with their young guards that they have with Lonnie Walker and DeJounte Murray. Moving on to the Sacramento Kings here, reports are that Buddy Hield wants out of Sacramento, and Bogdan Bogdanovic is a free agent this offseason, so you could likely see them looking guard or potentially wing. At this point. And a guy that I really love here is Devon Vasel for the Sacramento Kings. Vasel's got a really high defensive upside. There's a video out now with him with an altered jump shot, which might hurt his landing spot in the NBA draft, potentially why he fell to 12 here on our board. But I think his potential is really through the roof, especially if he, returns to his traditional shooting motion.
Yeah, I do have a counter argument against Vassell here. We are looking at the Kings, and historically, the draft has not been nice to them. I think RJ Hampton definitely would be in play, them feeling like they need to replace guard with guard. He's not skilled or anything for that matter, so I think they would be considering him at the selection. Um, a guy that's severely, severely overrated. He is definitely in the running. You have to remember you are not the Kings GM.
Yeah, right.
So I think he definitely should be considered here, but whoever you think.
Yeah, that's the one thing too that's really hard here because they just got new management. So you'd kind of hope to give them a pass that they're not gonna make that decision. But I kind of like let's mock RJ Hampton here for that reason you brought out because it is the Sacramento Kings. All right, at pick 13 here, I think now we're going to trust David Griffin for the Pelicans to go ahead and take Devon Vasel. Vasel is a top 5 player on my board. I'm really, really high on him coming out of college this year, out of Florida State. I think he's got really good two-way potential, and I'm not sure if I can find.
There's Aaron Neesmith right there, small forward.
Where is he at? Oh my gosh, there he is. Okay, well, shoot. Like, why do they? Yeah, their thing is kind of weird. You can't even look up. Can you look up players? I don't think you can. Like, Vasel. Yeah, see, like Vasel doesn't even pop up on there. Vasel's gonna pop up later in the thing.
Yeah, I'm sorted by points per game. I don't know how much he averaged.
I can't even sort by these things.
Okay.
We're gonna put Matthew Hurt here. Matthew Hurt didn't even come out this year, so he won't be drafted later. And that'll be
check under centers quick, just a year.
Dude, if he's listed as a center, that would be wild. No, and Luke Garza didn't come out either. I don't know why they have.
Maybe check.
Let me check under sophomores maybe. Vasel. Oh, I could have found Naismith this way.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, there's Vasel. Okay.
All right. Perfect. Nice. Yep.
Okay, let me get rid of that. I was gonna write this as Vasel. All right, so now we got Vasel off the board, and now the Boston Celtics here at 14. Looking at what the board brings to them, they've got quite a few options here. Obviously, a very complete roster at this point. They're going to be competing for NBA championships possibly, and they have the option here to take a guy based off potential or fit. What do you kind of see the Celtics going here?
I think they right now feel like they're very, very close to winning a championship, and I think they will just take the guy that's best suited right now. I think Tyrell Terry makes a lot of sense for them. We are a little bit higher on Tyrell Terry, but we've also heard that Boston is pretty high on Tyrell Terry as well. So that's who we will likely have as the selection.
Yep, Tyrell Terry, obviously, for those of you who don't know, you need to go watch him. He's a great shooter. Really functions well off the ball and on the ball, gives him a lot of versatility. He'll probably be able to come in as a bench scorer, play next to Marcus Smart. He's a little bit smaller in terms of frame. He's got good height. He's, I believe, 6'3", 6'4". But next to Smart, you get that physical defensive presence next to a ball handling and shooting guard. I think the two of them could really work well together off the bench, after the first unit, which is really, really deep there in Boston. So Tyrell Terry here at 14 to the Celtics. I absolutely love that pick for them. And now moving on to the Orlando Magic. Obviously, a lot of questions here. Fournier is got a player option this offseason. Likely will accept it. It's at $17 million. Vucevic just got extended. Their forward positions are very, very weak with Ennis and Clark. What do you kind of see here for the Orlando Magic?
The Orlando Magic, historically, we know like bigger guys. Obviously with Gordon and Vucevic and Jonathan Isaac. I think that kind of puts guys like Jaden McDaniels into play here. However, I also could see a pathway where they would look at the guard position, considering Augustine's their backup point guard, and Michael Carter-Williams is another guard that they have. We also we didn't take Patrick Williams yet.
No, Patrick Williams is still here.
He is still here. I see Patrick Williams being such an Orlando Magic pick.
Yeah, they've got Patrick Williams here listed as a guard. Do not believe that. He's a 3 at best. Probably will transition as a 4 in the NBA. he's got solid shooting potential, really good athlete off of when he's jumping off 2 feet, a little limited off of 1 foot, a little stiff in that regard, and that's why I think he fits best as a 4. But rim protection as a weak side defender, and potential to grow as an on-ball defender for Patrick Williams. I think that the Orlando Magic would probably feel lucky to get Patrick Williams here at 15, based on how some view his potential. And he's one of those guys that I could see Patrick Williams being much better than Killian Hayes, who went at 4 in this class in our mock here. So that's kind of the strength of this class, is it's pretty deep, even without a top-heavy superstar in this class. All right, moving on to 16, the Portland Trail Blazers. Obviously, really good in the bubble, came back from, I believe, 4 games down and out of the playoffs to fighting for that 8th seed and even taking a game from the NBA champion Los Angeles Lakers. What do you see here for the Portland Trail Blazers?
With the Portland Trail Blazers, it's kind of dependent on what happens with Carmelo Anthony and Gary Trent. Obviously, I think they should prioritize a 3. Depends on what happens there. Once again, there is the Jaden McDaniels that might be available at the spot, or is currently available, I should say. I think he makes sense here. They also do need another a backup point guard, but I could definitely see them looking more towards the 3. Is there anybody else that you would like to make me aware of at the 3?
Josh Green is pretty solid as a 2-3 combo, and also Saddiq Bey out of Villanova. Really good shooting potential, and he's got a pretty good frame at 6'8", that I could see maybe fitting in here. McDaniels is a pretty good potential pick, though, as a scorer off the bench early in his career for them. I think it's pretty open here for Portland, and I think this is another one of those question marks in the draft, with really where they kind of feel like they want to go, because they're pretty deep on their roster. They've got a lot of contributors already, especially with Ariza and Rodney Hood coming back, and Nasir Little if he takes a few steps forward as a shooter. I could see them going in a variety of ways. I think the guard situation is interesting.
I think a Nico Mannion selection would also be kind of interesting for them here, just to have off the bench. Like you said, some of those other guys like Ariza and Hood and Little, I don't know if they've given up on Little yet. They might. Maybe they should. Well, I guess we'll have to see. And it's really tough knowing what we know now for them. I'm going to let you make the selection. This one's too tough to pin.
Yeah, so to me, as a player, I like Josh Green more than Nico Mannion. But based on what I kind of think, with Nico Mannion's hype coming out of high school, and I think they kind of started to see the writing on the wall this year during the end of during the bubble run, is Damian Lillard was playing about 45, 46 minutes a game for a lot of those games, and they just didn't really have a guy to come in and take any load off of him for setting up offense. It was him and CJ the whole way, and I think that they're going to really try and value a guy who can, get the offense going, and I think Nico Mannion does fit that as a facilitator at the next level off the bench. So let's go with Nico here at 16. And now we have the Wolves here again at 17. Obviously, we had them taking LaMelo Ball earlier in this draft at pick number 1. What do you see here now for the Minnesota Timberwolves?
I think it kind of falls. I mean, they are definitely thin at the wing spot. I think the same guys that you had brought up, like Josh Green or Jaden McDaniels, makes sense here. I would probably opt for one of those two. Whoever you think would probably fit better for them.
Yeah, I would actually be really interested in taking Saddiq Bey here if we can find him. Because due to his shooting ability, and actually there he is out of Villanova. He's he got an unorthodox form, but he can stretch the floor for them. And I think if they did go LaMelo here at 1, their ideal course of action would be getting some shooters and guys who could be versatile defenders. And to me, it's between Saddiq Bey and Josh Green, and I think they would opt for Saddiq Bey here based off of his success in college.
Yeah, historically, the Wolves like to have guys that produced at the college level. They're a little nervous about taking more unproven commodities. Obviously, they took a sophomore last year with the Jared Culver pick. So I think that makes a lot of sense for them there.
And moving on to the Dallas Mavericks here, obviously one of the better teams that we've had on the board yet at this point. especially for the future. You got Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic, perhaps becoming one of the best duos in the NBA. Luka Doncic is actually opening the season as the favorite to be the MVP. And there's a lot that the Mavs could do to really build around him. They need another center, especially with Dwight Powell tearing his Achilles during the middle of last year. And they also need to improve their wing position and also get a backup playmaker to kind of, run the show when Luka's out, because DeLon Wright had some inconsistencies in that role, and Dorian Finney-Smith's not the, best traditional 3 option for an NBA team. So I could see them going a lot of ways. I think Josh Green here for them would open their eyes. I also think a pick like Alexei Pokusevski, based off potential, would be interesting. What do you kind of see for the Dallas Mavericks?
I think the Pokusevski pick makes a lot of sense for the Mavericks, actually. They like to take guys that are not from the U.S. A lot of their roster makeup is sticks true to that. I think they would take a guy based off of potential because they are able to develop talent. I can understand the win now mode going Josh Green, but I feel like they're pretty comfortable with what they have as, overall depth. I don't know like what the minutes would look like for him, considering that they do have Curry and Wright and everything. So I would go Pokusevski.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately where they will end up going if they stick at 18 here. They're also going to be a trade down candidate, especially if Tyrell Terry's off the board for them. I think Tyrell Terry's going to be the top of their board. And if he's gone, which he is here at this point in our mock draft, I think Pokusevski makes the most sense here, trying to, maybe find that third star a few years down the road through some developing. Let's go into pick 19 here. The Brooklyn Nets have this selection. Obviously, really looking to have a turnaround season from being the 7th seed this year and getting run off the floor by the Toronto Raptors to now having a healthy Kyrie and Kevin Durant, a completely different dynamic. The Nets will be competing for championships. And to me, there's 2 players that really stick out here, but the one that I really, really like for them in this case is Tyrese Maxey. I think he gives them, a combo guard who can be a little bit of a creator and north and south scorer for them, especially since I'm expecting them to be using Karis LeVert as trade bait going into this offseason.
Absolutely. I think that's the right pick right here.
Great. Moving into pick 20 with the Miami Heat, obviously really, really productive in these past playoffs, moving into the NBA Finals and even taking 2 games away from the Lakers. They have a pretty set in stone roster. Obviously, Jay Crowder could potentially be out, and Goran Dragic could be out. But for the most part, their core is set, and they're just looking for potentially a boom player or a guy who can kind of fit in. And I think Josh Green probably provides that the best, giving them a 3-and-D wing to kind of come off the bench early and complement Hero and Robinson.
Absolutely. That's who I would have went.
All right, moving into the Sixers here. Obviously, a lot of questions about the Sixers with Doc Rivers now being their head coach. They've got a lot of money put into 4 guys, and Horford, Harris, Simmons, and Embiid. And the fit between those 4 is not the best. So hitting in every draft pick that they have over the next few years will be really, really key for them. What do you kind of see here for the Sixers roster? What do you kind of think that they need and would prioritize?
I think a guy that they should prioritize is maybe Jaden McDaniels here. We've talked about him for quite a few picks in a row. If you look at the power forward spot, they'd likely let go of Mike Scott. I think they don't have a lot left in the backup 4 spot. So I think he makes a lot of sense here. You would think maybe a point guard like Kyra Lewis would be possibly a fit here, but I think they'd like Shake Milton too much to do that. So I would opt for Jaden McDaniels.
Yeah, I think Jaden McDaniels makes a lot of sense. He's got the upside there. He can be function as a little bit of a half-court creator for them, which they badly need a few years down the road. And I think that he's going to be a guy that they're going to be able to be patient with based on the quality of their roster already. They're going to be in a playoff team, no doubt, and I think that they can afford to wait for him to kind of develop. Moving into the Denver Nuggets here, I want to bring up a guy you had just mentioned in Kyra Lewis. Monte Morris has been, mentioned in some trade rumors because he's going to be a free agent, not this offseason, but the next. And I think that they're going to be ready to, really replace him with a guy. So I think Kyra Lewis here makes the most sense to the Denver Nuggets. What do you see here with them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they they do a pretty good job seeing the writing on the wall. Obviously, they shipped out Malik Beasley when they felt like they weren't going to be able to keep him. I think the same is going to happen with Morris, and I think Lewis is the pick.
Yep, I love that value here at pick 22. I think Kyra Lewis is a top 15 player in this draft, and I think grabbing him here at 22 and getting a starting level point guard to be behind Jamal Murray is really, really going to be beneficial for them in extending their window and continuing to compete at a high level. Now the Utah Jazz, obviously a lot of questions around Mike Conley. Obviously they traded for him last offseason, and it didn't age really the best. His fit there was a little questionable, and also the Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell drama leaves their roster up in some question marks moving forward. What do you kind of see here for the Utah Jazz in terms of need?
The need, definitely, I would say another point guard possibly with Moutier. Is he out on his way out, would you say?
Yeah, I think Moutier will likely not return, and I think honestly Mike Conley will probably be in his last year there as well. I think Donovan Mitchell and Clarkson are really the only two guards that'll be sticking around for a while.
Yeah, so under that, or with that in mind, I think they would look at Maledon and Trey Jones. I think they would opt for Maledon though. He's from France. They felt comfortable taking Gobert, who is also from France. I think that makes a lot of sense here.
Yeah, Maledon's really a pro-ready guard. He's going to be able to come in and lead a second unit. He's not going to be an elite scorer, but he's just going to he's going to take care of the ball. He's going to limit turnovers, and he's going to be a willing passer. And I think that kind of fits in well, especially next to Joe Ingles and with Jordan Clarkson really assuming that six-man scoring role for them. Moving on here to the Milwaukee Bucks, a lot of people have been mocking Eric Bledsoe going on his way out. Wesley Matthews is a free agent this offseason. And they're, quite frankly, a team that needs to try their best to win right now. And I think upgrading the guard position and getting some long-term help there with Trey Jones could be beneficial. Or also Precious Achiuwa falling here to 24, I think makes some sense, getting a guy to replace Marvin Williams, who just announced his retirement this offseason. What do you see here for the Milwaukee Bucks?
Yeah, I definitely see the value. I do think that Bledsoe may be on his way out, so I think they would prioritize getting a point guard at this spot. I do like the idea of possibly Precious Achiuwa going here as well. Probably maybe a little more upside with Achiuwa. I'm not exactly sure how to evaluate these two players. We know like Trey Jones is very, very similar to his brother. We know what that's going to give you. You can find that on the open market, really. There's not a lot of upside with him. I think they would play it safe here and go Trey Jones.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the consensus thing I've been seeing around the league. Like Trey Jones is really, really going to be a safe selection, like you had mentioned. And I think in trying to compete for a championship, he might be able to give you some quality backup minutes, especially if Bledsoe does find his way out this offseason. And he's got pretty solid defensive potential too, as being a disruptor. Like his brother. Moving on to the Oklahoma City Thunder here, obviously going to have a very fluid roster moving forward. I expect Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to kind of transition to the lead point guard, with Chris Paul likely getting traded out, and Danilo Gallinari will be leaving the the Oklahoma City Thunder this offseason. Steven Adams has obviously been on the trade market for a year and a half now. And I think that the Thunder kind of are just going to be going who they feel like the best player is at this point. What do you kind of see here for the Oklahoma City Thunder?
Yeah, this is pretty tough to evaluate at this point, with so many things dependent on free agency and what's going to happen. I think you're very right about best player available. I'm not exactly sure who you would take at this point in terms of best player. Maybe a Precious Achiuwa here. This is a tough pick. I'm going to let you make that selection.
Yeah, right here around 25 is when the class kind of starts to thin back out again, and we get to another tier, in my opinion. Precious Achiuwa, some love him out of Memphis. I think he kind of doesn't translate well to the NBA because he's a 4. He's in a 4's body, but with a 5 skill sets, in my opinion. And I think he's got some hindrances, especially out on the perimeter defensively. But I think that a lot of NBA teams will value Achiuwa and kind of see him as a versatile, player, kind of like Taj Gibson is kind of, I feel like, how some will view him in terms of, role that he can fill. So I think Achua will go here at 25 to the Oklahoma City Thunder in their start of a rebuild with all the picks that they have coming up from the Clippers and the Miami Heat and also the Houston Rockets. 26 here, we have the Celtics on the clock for the second time. With their first pick, they took Tyrell Terry at pick 14. And a lot of people have been screaming that they need center help. They need center help. I think that they really do like Daniel Tice as their starting center. But I think that it is natural to be looking for other big men to, kind of move into a backup role or potentially even fill the starting role in a few years down the road. Obviously, they got Robert Williams, and their wing spots are deep. So what do you kind of see here for the Celtics?
Yeah, I think actually looking for a center makes sense for them. And I think if you're Boston, I think you bank it on potential. Isaiah Stewart might be a guy they might look, who was a 5-star prospect coming out of high school. I believe he was top 5 in his class, if that's correct.
Yep.
I don't know how they would view him, but I think taking a risk, like if you're the Boston Celtics, this guy's not going to play pretty much no matter what. I'd go the highest potential coming out of high school. I'd go Isaiah Stewart.
Yeah, I think Isaiah Stewart's probably the likely pick here. To me, it would be between him and Zeke Naji for who they would like. And I think Stewart, his frame and his size kind of fits better into that traditional screening and rolling center that they're going to use in Boston. So I think Isaiah Stewart will be their selection here as well, based on how the board had played out for them. Moving on to pick 27 here, we have the New York Knicks, who did take Cole Anthony, point guard, out of UNC at pick 8, filling their need there. Jamias Ramsey is another point guard available, and would be a guy to watch here at this point if they didn't have a point guard already go. Additionally, we could see them potentially, going with a wing. This part of the class is when it kind of starts to thin out a little bit. There's, Jay Scrubb out of a Division II Logan school, who some see have potential. I think he's going to be one of the better players in this class. Holistically, there's also Devin Dotson here, who could play a little bit of the 1 and 2 position at the NBA level. Obviously, Cole Anthony's size kind of limits what he can do. What do you see here for the New York Knicks?
Yeah, the New York Knicks. One thing I do know about them, they love their forwards. They especially love power forwards. I'm going to go Zeke Naji with this selection.
Yeah, I can definitely see that too. Julius Randle does have a player or a team option coming up after this season as well. So, getting their potential power forward of the future and moving off Julius Randle in a run for Giannis Antetokounmpo, even though they will not likely sign him, will likely be the move for the New York Knicks. All right, pick 28, the defending champion Los Angeles Lakers here. Obviously would be a potential trade out spot here for them to save some money off of a guarantee into the second round. But if they do stay put, I think that they will be looking for a guy who can really impact the game right now. And to me, that is Cassius Winston out of Michigan State, senior there, really, had a good career as a Spartan. And I think with the, Rajon Rondo opting out of his player option to stay, I think Cassius Winston, a backup guard for them, would be a viable option here.
Yep, that's who I would select here.
All right, with just 2 picks left, we have the Toronto Raptors here. Obviously, a very complete roster as well. Marc Gasol potentially leaving for Spain, and Serge Ibaka is a free agent, so they could be looking big man here. There was Vernon Carey Jr. still on the board, but they could also be looking guard. It depends on what Fred VanVleet does, if they let him go or if they really try and retain him. And they can still retain Serge Ibaka as well at this point. So it's just going to be for them kind of best player available that they feel and who they think has, a good potential to develop. Also, Jalen Smith, he's kind of got that inside-outside center make to him, could shoot a little bit, and kind of fits with what they had been doing more with Gasol and Ibaka as well than Carey does.
Yeah, I'd probably go Jalen Smith over Vernon Carey.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think, and I think that would be a really, really phenomenal pick. They could also look Daniel Oturu here, but from what I've been hearing, it seems like a lot more teams are higher on Jalen Smith and his NBA potential as a stretch than Daniel Oturu's. And the Boston Celtics here at 30, we had them just take Isaiah Stewart and Tyrell Terry. And if we're being honest, this is likely a for sure trade out spot at this point. If they did use the other 2 picks, I find it unlikely they'd use 3 first rounders in 1 year, especially after they had so many picks in the last draft when they took Langford and some others. like Tremont Waters. This is going to be a tough one to mock because we already have two players going here. But I could see a lot of different things. I could see them rolling a dice on Jay Scrubb possibly, or I could see them going for a Devon Dotson or a Vernon Carey Jr. as well.
Yeah. Oh man. I would probably just opt for Vernon Carey. I definitely see possibly Dotson, but there's just not a lot going on here.
Yeah.
Definitely a trade out spot, but if they had to stay, I mean, maybe Vernon Carey would be the pick, or possibly Scrub would be the pick as well. I would just opt for Vernon Carey.
Yeah, I think that is pretty safe, especially with, potentially they don't take Isaiah Stewart at 26. And I do see it likely that they take one big man somewhere in the back end of the first round if they don't grab one at 14. So Vernon Carey will go here, and that will sum up our 30-pick mock draft here. Let's go through it quick. LaMelo Ball going 1 to the Minnesota Timberwolves with Wiseman 2, Edwards 3 to the Hornets, Killian Hayes to the Bulls, Denny Avdia to the Cavaliers, Isaac Okoro to the Atlanta Hawks, Obi Toppin to the Pistons, Cole Anthony to the Knicks, Okongwu and to the Wizards, Halliburton at 10 to the Suns. Here we had
So let me prompt you with this real quick. Just looking at this, who would you say fell further than you expected doing the mock, and who went too high?
Yeah, to me, I think Kyra Lewis, I think, fell too far based on how good he is, I think. Now, is it possible that he goes 22? Yeah, I think it is possible. But to me, he's kind of more in this, 12 to 17-ish range than down at 22. And I think the Nuggets would really, really consider themselves lucky to get Kyra at that point. And I think to me, also Vasel, I think went too low. I think Vasel will stay in the top 10. But it's kind of hard because Killian Hayes is the kind of the swing there. If Killian Hayes goes in the top 5, then maybe. And I think a guy that went too high, probably RJ Hampton, even though I've seen a lot of people mocking him up this high. I think NBA teams, based off some of his struggles in the NBL, would have him right around pick 20 to 25 rather than at 12.
I agree completely.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. Let us know down in the comments below who you think we had too high or too low. Let us know who you think your team will draft, or if you would be happy with who we mocked with them drafting. And we'll see you guys in the next video.